so that we can share this moving forward. So yeah, we'll just kind of jump in. My name is Maria. I'm the outreach worker for the Catholic Charities Domestic Violence Program. And I have Beth, the clinical manager for our program, on here as well.
Hi, everyone.
So I'll be starting out and then I'll kind of hand it off to Beth for the second half. So you don't just have to hear me talking all day. But just kind of jumping in, we always start out with just a reminder to take care of yourself. We understand that it's not easy to talk about or think about, dating violence of any kind. If you need to take a break, turn the camera off, take a little lap, take a couple of breaths, we totally understand. Just doing what's best for you in these, when we're talking about these kind of topics. It's a safe, judgment-free space, so we're trying to respect each other where we're at and where we're coming from. And also just a reminder that our time is limited. We only have an hour today to talk about this. There's so many things you could go into. So we'll address as much as we can, but and we'll have a little time at the end for questions. But just you guys will also have our email. So if you have further questions, you're welcome to reach out to us. You're also welcome to use the chat throughout. So if you have a question that comes up, if you want to stick it in the chat, we will definitely try to get to that at the end. So please feel free to use the chat to participate. And then just kind of an outline of what we'll cover today. We're going to do a bit of the definitions and dynamics of teen dating violence. We'll touch a little bit on what teen dating violence is like in the LGBTQ plus community. We'll highlight some of the red flags you might be seeing, and then cover a little bit of safety planning for teens who are experiencing teen dating violence. And then Beth will also cover, helping teens in your life. If they've shared this, how can you support them? And then go over a couple resources that might be helpful for teens who are experiencing teen dating violence. And then just as a heads up, we are going to try to put a survey in at the end. And it's really helpful if you guys are able to, it's just a quick link. It takes like a minute just to let us know if we covered enough stuff, if what went well and what didn't. So we'll include that at the end as well. So just some learning objectives we hope you guys come away with is just to understand the concept of teen dating violence and its impact. Hopefully you'll be able to identify different types and forms of abuse, being able to kind of distinguish those unhealthy dating relationships, and then hopefully you'll become aware of and be able to utilize some local resources for teens in the community. So just kind of jumping right in, we're going to talk about what is teen dating violence. So the official definition is that it is a pattern of destructive behaviors one person uses against another in order to gain or maintain power and control in a dating relationship. So just kind of highlighting here, it's a pattern of behaviors. So, it's often repetitive, things kind of build off of each other and grow over time. And that it's ultimately about, one person wants to be in charge and kind of control what the other person thinks and feels and acts like in the relationship. So just kind of an important number to think about going into this actually is that 1 in 3 adolescents in the US is a victim of physical, sexual, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner. So we know that, this is really prevalent. A lot of youth are experiencing some sort of abuse in their relationships. And this number isn't necessarily just be shocking, but just to kind of know this is prevalent. We want to be talking about it. We want teens to know what's happening because most likely, peers might be experiencing, a friend might be going through it. Maybe they had a family member who went through it. Because if we know 1 in 3 adolescents have experienced this, there's likely someone out there who can understand them and help them. So just an important thing to think about moving forward. And before we get too far into it, we did want to kind of highlight, what teen dating violence in LGBTQ plus communities can look like. So just knowing that dating abuse occurs at the same rates and in similar ways in LGBTQ plus relationships as in heterosexual relationships. So we still see that, 1 in 3 young people across the board are still experiencing some form of abuse. So everything I'm going to share moving forward, the different types of abuse, is still completely relevant and would apply to youth and LGBTQ plus relationships. But what we really wanted to highlight was that there's oftentimes additional barriers to getting help. So they might be experiencing similar things, but it might be even, there's these extra barriers, it might be even harder for youth to get that help that they might want to get. So just to highlight a couple of those barriers, youth might be facing kind of internal conflict or embarrassment about getting help. So they might be embarrassed that the abuse is going on. Their partner might have, as part of the power and control and the abuse, shamed them for their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, so that, they might be feeling that shame from their partners. They don't want to reach out because they're worried about receiving judgment from other people. And they might feel like their partner is the only person that will ever love them. Maybe that partner has made them to feel that they're not worthy, they're experiencing that emotional abuse, so they might be worried, like, if I reach out, I'll face this rejection because of who I am. Another thing teens in LGBTQ plus relationships might be dealing with is fear of not being believed. This is kind of across the board. Anyone experiencing abuse might have this fear, but there might just be an additional worry that they won't be able to get the help they really want because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. They might not feel like people will understand, or they'll be accepting, or there'll be enough resources to kind of help them deal with their certain situation. And kind of lastly, a major barrier teens in LGBTQ plus relationships might face is a fear of like losing community in multiple ways. So they might be, worried about losing that, community of accepting people and people like them who know their experience and are sympathetic and understanding. So they may be worried, well, if I reach out, will they not believe me and turn against me? Or, their partner might have even threatened, like, if you tell someone something's going on, I will, tell them not to talk to you anymore. So they may be worried about losing the community they've built, but they might also face that worry and fear that their partner will out them if they're not already out and not ready to go be out. They might be worried that, their partner might have said to them, if you reach out or tell someone's wrong, I'm going to tell your family about you or about us. And they might be concerned about, the what could happen. They might be worried their family might not accept them. And they might not be ready for that. So they might say, well, I don't want to tell anyone something's wrong in our relationship because I don't want to lose these other relationships. So again, just highlighting here at the bottom, it says that less than 25% of those who experience dating violence in LGBTQ plus community ever report the abuse. So we already know it's very underreported, but especially if you're facing these additional barriers, just for the fear of being accepted and getting the help that you deserve. So just something to keep in mind moving forward. We want to be mindful of all youth and all of their experiences. So kind of getting into some of the dynamics. So I'll kind of go through the different types of abuse. We'll give some examples and just some things you might want to, some red flags to keep an eye out for teen relationships. We're going to be focusing on the abusive kind of relationships and what that looks like, but we also want to remember there's kind of a spectrum of relationships. They can go from healthy to unhealthy, and then maybe over time will progress to become more abusive. So when we're seeing those unhealthy relationships, we might be starting to think, okay, this is a red flag. We need to either address this or leave the relationship or start having a conversation when we're seeing unhealthy behaviors, because they can develop into, this abusive behavior over time. So just something to keep in mind, that relationships are kind of a spectrum. Things can kind of move back and forth. It takes a lot of conversation and, learning for kids to understand where they kind of fall in the spectrum. So just kind of starting off, the first one we kind of tend to think about, I think, with dating violence is physical abuse. So this is any intentional unwanted contact with you or something close to your body. So, or any behavior that causes or has the intention of causing injury, disability, or death. So I'll give you a few examples in a moment, but just remembering too, abusive behavior might not always cause like long-term physical pain or leave, overt signs on the body, but it's still unhealthy and should be taken seriously. So just a couple examples here. So we think of like scratching, punching someone, biting someone, especially things like strangling, choking, or kicking should be taken very seriously. It also includes throwing items at someone or pulling their hair. Pushing or pulling someone, or like forcibly grabbing them by the clothes to kind of pull them back. All of that falls under physical abuse. Touching any part of someone without permission or consent. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more with sexual abuse, but still kind of falls under that kind of unwanted contact. It's like grabbing someone's face to look at them, or also preventing someone from leaving or forcing someone to go somewhere. So this is kind of what we mentioned. It might not be like causing physical pain, but maybe blocking a doorway. Or for teens, an example is, their partner might show up at the end of class at their door every single day or after every class and kind of decide, this is where you're going next. You're going to follow me. So they're physically deciding where this person is going. So that kind of like physical control would also fall under here as well. Next type of abuse you might see in teen dating violence is sexual abuse. So this is any behavior that pressures or coerces someone to do something sexually that they don't want to do. So everyone has a right to decide what they do or don't want to do sexually. And also something to keep in mind that not all sexual assaults are these, what we might think of as a violent attack. Of course, it's still sexual abuse, but we might see some coercion and some threats towards sexual contact. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. But also things to remember is that most survivors of sexual assault know their perpetrator, and that people of all genders and sexualities can be survivors or perpetrators of sexual abuse. So anytime anyone, especially teens, comes forward with an experience of sexual abuse, we want to be mindful that we want to try to remove as much bias as we can about that might have been the perpetrator. We want to be open and listening to their experience. So some examples of, what sexual abuse might look like. So, it might be that unwanted kissing or touching, or, threatening or forcing someone to have sex or perform sexual acts against their will or without that consent. So it's kind of those overt types of sexual abuse. But we also include, not allowing someone to use condoms or use birth control. So, maybe they say, well, I want to use a condom, but their partner says, well, I don't want to because it doesn't feel as good, so we're not using them. So not allowing someone to use the protection they want is considered sexual abuse as well. We also include, sexual insults or jokes against someone, and then also sharing sexually explicit content. So sometimes in relationships, including teen relationships, people will share sexually explicit photos with each other with the expectation that they stay in that relationship. But once they're, shared outside of that or without permission, then we consider that sexual abuse. The next one is emotional abuse. So any kind of non-physical behaviors that it's about putting someone down and making them feel less than themselves. Can be threats, insults, monitoring or checking in. So, calling them names. These are a couple more examples. But, emotional abuse is just kind of calling someone names, telling them what to do, yelling or screaming at them. And especially for teens, it might look like intentionally embarrassing someone or starting rumors about them. So kind of making them feel kind of self-conscious or worried about themselves, not allowing them to communicate with people they care about, in being very jealous and kind of protective, overly protective in an unhealthy way, or stalking. So some of the emotional abuse we'll see kind of show up in the other types of abuse as well, because it's very strong and very pervasive. But one we really wanted to include here is called love bombing. It's definitely something we're hearing a lot more out there. And what love bombing is essentially is just kind of like overly intense, like emotional onslaught from someone in their relationship, and kind of with the idea of trying to influence that person and making them kind of feel a sense of dependence, like, oh, this person just loves me so much and I need them because they care about me so much. It might look like over the top compliments. So like, I've never met anyone as perfect as you. You've answered all my dreams and my prayers, just kind of over the top and constant. So communication is intense. With teens, this might look like, they're FaceTiming while texting while also Snapchatting. It's just kind of, they're always connected and they kind of feel like they always have to be connected. And costly gifts, just kind of over the top, making them feel like they're spending all this money on them. And then, just things seem to be moving very fast, especially, teens might not have been in a relationship before, so they might start to think this is normal. But if it's like saying I love you after a couple of days and just these, paragraph long texts, it's really great to have a healthy relationship where there's compliments and you're saying positive things about each other. But it's also important to build, healthy communication at a healthy rate and let each other feel things out and get to know each other before it becomes a really intense, over the top kind of connection where they feel like they have to rely on this person for all of their emotional well-being. So the next type of abuse is psychological abuse. So this is kind of use of verbal and nonverbal communication to kind of create a sense of like fear in the relationship. So a couple examples, the partner using harm might threaten to harm the survivor or their pets or their people in their life. They also might threaten to harm themselves if they end the relationship. So we hear this sometimes, like, if you break up with me, I'm going to like kill myself, or I'm going to hurt one of your friends. So they're kind of creating this sense that if the survivor doesn't do what they're told to do, then they will face consequences, or people they care about will face consequences. There's also gaslighting, which I'll go to in a bit in the next slide in more detail. But threatening to expose personal details. So they might have shared something private or in secret in the relationship, and the partner might say, well, if you don't do what I say, then I'm going to tell everyone what you told me. So just, again, creating that sense that if you don't do what I say, something bad will happen for you. The other type of thing that we hear a lot about, I think this is kind of a common word we see using now, but it's gaslighting. Um, and it's a very, very strong tactic used to control someone and kind of manipulate their emotions and feelings. So basically, it's just making someone second guess themselves, create self-doubt, or they're like think that they're not perceiving reality accurately. So it might look like, a survivor might say something like, I didn't really like when you threw my phone, that kind of freaked me out, that kind of scared me. But their partner using high might say, like, well, you're kind of overreacting, you're not remembering it right. It didn't happen like that. So they're just kind of making the survivor second guess themselves. Or they might, discredit them, say, oh, she's just being crazy, or she's just paranoid, don't listen to her. Or, you know, making them feel like they're overreacting. So why are you being so sensitive? I was just joking around, you're overreacting. So over time, a teen in that relationship might think, well, this must be normal, or I'm overreacting and I'm just being silly. So this is just, I think we just have to, this is what our relationship looks like. So gaslighting can be a very powerful way for someone to keep the power and the control, because they get that partner kind of thinking, oh, okay, this is just how it looks. The next one to talk about is digital abuse. This is multifaceted and kind of falls within all of these different types of abuse, but it's essentially the use of technology, like texting or social media, to bully, harass, stalk, or intimidate a partner. So like I said, it's usually a form of verbal or emotional abuse, but it's conducted online. So some examples: telling someone who they can or can't follow or be friends with on social media. So we talked about isolating them from friends and family. Well, everyone's really connected over social media and phones. And if their partner is saying, well, I don't want you to follow that person anymore, then that is kind of a form of control. Sending negative, insulting, or threatening messages. Using social media to track your activities. So this might be like, I saw you posted a picture of, you and your friend going out to lunch. I didn't know you were going there. Like, you didn't tell me. Why did you do that? Or just kind of saying, noticing that maybe someone shared they're going somewhere and they show up at that place. So they're just being very controlling and using social media to do so. Insulting or humiliating you in posts online, or like purposefully posting unflattering photos to make someone feel bad about themselves. Again, posting or sharing unwanted, like explicit photos. And another really big one for teens here is like looking through phones or checking up over pictures, texts, and phone records. If someone's comfortable in their relationship saying, oh, do you need to look something up on my phone, or do you need to send a message or use my phone? That's okay. But if a teen feels like they have to hand over their phone every time they see their partner, or they have to share each other's passwords for everything, they shouldn't feel like that is part of the relationship that they're obligated to do because that person told them to do so. That would fall under this digital abuse. And that constant communicating, and maybe the partner said, if you don't have your phone or you don't answer me back in a certain amount of time, then you're in trouble. So that kind of falls under that as well. The last type of abuse that we'll kind of touch on here is stalking. So digital abuse, we did kind of cover what stalking can look like over the digital platforms. We know this happens in person as well. So anytime someone is, watching, following, or harassing someone repeatedly and creating that sense of fear, that would be considered stalking. So, showing up at home, or, at the teens at their job, or they're always there after school, after every class, even if they've kind of unannounced or uninvited. Those unwanted text messages, giving them unwanted gifts, just kind of, again, that over the top, just constant showing up without any kind of permission or conversation. This is, again, some of that digital platform that we talked about. It also can look like spreading rumors about someone online or in person, and also asking other people to kind of check up on them. So maybe they ask a friend to say, like, hey, can you check up on her? Let me know what she's doing or what her plans are. So that's kind of what that stalking can look like. So all of those different types of abuse can kind of fall under this little graphic here, which we call the teen power and control wheel. We also have a very similar graphic that we use when we're talking about domestic violence, which is, in adult relationships. But essentially, it just is illustrating in kind of a concise way all the different ways that someone can use, all the different tactics someone has to keep power and keep the control in a relationship. So around the outside, that darker circle, we see like that more overt physical abuse and sexual abuse that might happen to keep the control of someone. They're physically trying to control the person, or using that sexual abuse to control them. And inside, it's a little bit more of those subtle tactics that might be easier to hide, or just might be harder to recognize right away, that people keep the control. So, anger and emotional abuses, we talked about that one. So just making someone feel bad about themselves, putting them down, just kind of keeping that control over their emotional well-being. Social status is a really big one, and that kind of comes along with privilege. So, one partner in the relationship might have a higher status in their friend group, or they might have just status in the community in general as being, they might have privilege that comes with it. So it might be, if it's that typical, stereotypical male female relationship, the male might fall into some of those stereotypical gender roles and say, well, I get to make all the decisions, I'm in charge, you have to do everything I say. So it might look like that. Another social status thing that we kind of touched on with the LGBTQ plus relationships is maybe someone has a little bit more privilege in being out and being able to be openly out, and they might use that to control the person who isn't out or isn't comfortable with that yet, and, to use that to control what the other person does. We also see intimidation, of course. So the intimidation, minimizing, denying, and blaming, and then threats that we see there at the bottom ones, those are all kind of that psychological abuse. So, creating that sense of fear that if you don't do what I say, I will hurt you, I'll hurt myself, or what you're seeing isn't really happening. So again, just creating that sense of self-doubt to control that, keep that person from leaving or getting help or doing what they want in the relationship. That next one over there is sexual coercion. So we do have the sexual abuse around the outside, and we consider that more of those overt, maybe like sexual attacks, forcing the sex acts on someone. Sexual coercion might look more, is more subtle, like we said. So like using threats to get sex. So like, if you don't have sex with me, we'll break up. So it's still, not considered full consent, but they're using that pressure to get to use that sexual coercion to control someone. And it might not be something that teens are typically recognizing as sexual abuse, because they might say, well, I didn't say no, but they're still receiving that pressure against their will to do something they're not comfortable with. Or there might be that, pressure to use drugs or alcohol, and then using, that time to pressure that person. So again, that just forcing someone or using different manipulation to get sex that the person might not yet be comfortable with. Then we see isolation and exclusion. So this is a very powerful tactic, and really has to do with, especially being a teen, being that age, everyone wants to belong, they want to have their friends and their peers around them, but their partner might kind of cut them off from those friends. It might be obvious. It might say, well, you can't see that person, I don't want you spending time with them. Or it might come off more as like flattery, like, I just love you so much, I want you to be the person I spend all the time with, we're meant to be, we're soulmates. So just kind of creating that isolation just by kind of creating that bubble, or excluding them, kind of overtly just saying, well, you're not allowed to spend time with that group. So normally when someone's in a relationship and things aren't going well, or they just want to talk about it, they'll talk to their friends and family. But if that person has been able to isolate them and create this bubble or cut them off, then it might be harder for them to like realize, oh, this isn't quite right, maybe I need some help, or maybe I want to talk about this. But if someone's able to kind of cut them off from that supports, it can be a very powerful way to keep that power and control. And the last one we see here is peer pressure. So this one is definitely very specific to, teen relationships. Again, like I said, we all, even as adults, we all want to fit in, but as a teenager, it's all about social status. It's all about, having friends, and just people want to fit in and they want to have people who care about them and like them. So peer pressure can be a powerful way to control someone. A partner can threaten, to expose some of their secrets or something they shared with each other, or threaten to start rumors if they don't do, what the teen asked them to do. So again, this is just kind of taking all those different tactics of abuse and kind of putting them all in one little graphic, and just highlighting some of the red flags you might see that can look like abuse in teen dating relationships. And the last little part I'm going to touch on, and then we'll watch a quick video, is the cycle of violence. So I think, as we're talking about all these things and thinking about all of them, we might think, well, like, why wouldn't you just leave if someone's hurting you or hurting your feelings or scaring you? Like, you think you would just want to leave. But we know there's so many barriers, which we won't all be able to get into all of those right now. But something to keep in mind that is, when someone's experiencing dating violence, they're going through kind of a cycle, which can be hard to break when you're in it. So oftentimes it starts with this honeymoon phase where things are good, you're having a lot of fun together, you're getting to know each other, but over time, that tension might build, more of that yelling, criticism, like name calling might happen. And then we see that big explosion. So it might be a big physical or sexual attack, or a big emotional attack. It's just more intense. And then it's usually followed by, again, that honeymoon phase. We're like, I'm so sorry, it shouldn't have happened, I overreacted. Or you might see that blaming, if you hadn't hung out with that person, I wouldn't have had to do that, so you won't probably do it again, so it's not gonna happen. But you see this honeymoon phase where things feel better, but then you see that tension building up again. In abusive relationships, this cycle is kind of always going on. So it can be hard for someone in the relationship. Well, they might think, oh, there are good times, like things are okay sometimes. They might always kind of be looking forward to that or hoping things will change, especially for teens if this is one of their first relationships. They're still learning how to build relationships. They might start to get that sense of denial or think like this is just must be what relationships look like for me. So just keeping in mind, if you have a teen coming to you with this, or you're seeing this cycle happen, just know that it's hard to break. It can be helpful once they're out to kind of share this with someone and say, hey, does this sound like something you're experiencing? So this can be a helpful tool for us to understand when we're not in the relationship, but to also share, with someone who might be experiencing, like, does this look kind of familiar to you? Because it might not be something they recognize when they're in it. But just know that this can be a barrier to why it might be difficult for people to leave, because they're kind of in this little cycle and it can be hard to break. So I'm actually going to share next a nice a video. It's kind of created by teens, and there's teen actors in it, and it's really great because they give a couple examples of what these different types of abuse might look like kind of in a high school setting. So it's kind of a nice little illustration of what it can look like in the real world. I'll share that a bit, and then I'll hand it over to Beth after that. And if you guys have any thoughts or comments after the video, please feel free to share them in the chat. But go ahead and get that started. It's about 5 minutes.
Hey, Miss Tom, can I talk to you?
Sure, come on in.
Thanks.
What's going on?
It's about my boyfriend.
It's about my girlfriend. I feel so lost.
What's wrong? You guys seem like you were so happy.
At first, we were. But something happened and he just changed.
What do you mean? How has he changed?
It all started a couple weeks ago when he started trying to isolate me from my friends.
What are you doing?
I'm sitting with my friends.
We agreed that you're going to sit by me from now on.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, we did. So just go ahead and come on over here. We'll see y'all later. Come on.
Alright. I guess bye, guys. Bye.
She even kept me away from my family.
What's up?
Oh, hey, how are you?
I'm good.
That's good. So, what are you doing this weekend?
I'm going to my grandpa's birthday.
Oh, I kind of thought you were going to hang out with me.
No, I've been talking about his birthday for like ever.
Oh, I didn't notice, I guess. Sorry, I mean, you kind of have to come hang out with me this weekend. It's kinda...
Every little thing he started blaming me for.
All right, guys, I'm going to pass back your papers. Good job. Some of you need to work harder next time.
Look, I got an A.
Got an F. You know what? If I wouldn't have gotten this if I didn't have to spend all my time making sure you weren't talking to other guys.
Don't blame that on me.
You
I
just
didn't
waste
do
my
that.
time. Because of you, I got this grade.
No.
She expected me to wait on her 24/7.
Hey.
Why didn't you wait for me? You know you're supposed to walk me to lunch every single day. And what's this? You didn't even give me a cookie? You're such a jerk, Justin.
He started getting jealous of all my friends.
Hey, I got a question about rehearsals.
Yeah?
Are we still having them tonight?
Yeah, it's at 7.
Alright.
What are you guys doing?
Just asking about rehearsal.
Can you excuse us for a second?
Sure.
What is your deal?
What are you doing talking to him?
He was asking about rehearsal.
Oh, really?
Yeah?
Why does he need to talk to you? Why about rehearsal? Why can't he just talk to somebody else?
Because I don't know. He was just asking about rehearsal. It's no big deal.
I think it is whenever you start talking to guys over me. It's because you want to talk to him, right?
No.
Because he's better than me. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's not better than you. He's just my
Sure.
friend.
Okay, fine. I'll believe this for now. Just come on.
Okay.
She would always talk down on me.
Hey, have you got your lines memorized?
Excuse me, can you guys go over there for a minute, please? I need to talk to him. What are you doing?
Talking to my friends.
You're talking to my friends?
They're my friends too.
No, they're not. Didn't we agree that you can't talk to my friends if you're gonna dress like that? I mean, what is wrong with you? Why would you even think that looks good? I mean, look.
And when I tried to break it off with him, he started threatening me.
Hey,
Hey,
We need to talk.
About what?
I don't like how you've been acting these past few days. I think it's time we just take a break and move on.
Wait a minute, how have I been acting?
You're just not the same.
Like how?
You're different. You've changed. You're controlling, and I don't like
Controlling?
it.
I'm just doing what a good boyfriend does. I'm taking care of you and making sure who you hang out with is who I want you to hang out with. So pretty much you're threatening to break up with me.
I'm not threatening to break up with you. I'm breaking up with you.
Really? So you know how much stuff I know about you. I can let everyone know every little bitty secret you got.
You wouldn't
I
tell
can make
anybody.
you nothing.
You wouldn't do that.
You think I would? I want to do that to my girlfriend, but for somebody who breaks up with me, I just might.
Whenever I was away, she was constantly checking up on me.
That's when things started to get physical.
Hey,
Hey,
we need to talk about yesterday.
about what?
About you and Justin talking at the lockers whenever I specifically told you not to talk to other guys.
When he was asking me about rehearsal?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, come on. That was no big
You know
deal.
you're lying.
What
That was probably him, wasn't it?
No, it was my
You're
mom.
always talking to other guys. I can't even trust you anymore.
I'm not talking to other
Be
guys.
quiet.
Don't push me. What are you doing?
You
Stop.
just need to shut your mouth.
1 in 3 high school students have been or will be involved in an abusive relationship.
1 in 10 teens have been purposely hit, slapped, or verbally abused in some way by a boyfriend or girlfriend.
If you're experiencing any of this, tell someone. Whether it's a school counselor, a parent, or a friend, there's someone there that can help you.
And just remember, you're not alone.
Thanks, Maria, for sharing all that information in the video. As people were watching, did any of the power and control dynamics that Maria talked about or different types of abuse come up? Did anyone notice anything that they want to share? And feel free to use the chat or come off mute if you would like.
Hello, I'm Maggie Bruce, and I'm at St. Norbert and Our Lady of the Brook Parish in Northbrook, and I'm the youth ministry coordinator. So I have definitely come across a few of these things that the teens are going through. It is real, you know, and I think the hardest part for them is it's often not talked about. And so good to open up about it and be able to have a voice, and that final line, you are not alone. So important. So important.
Thank you, Maggie, for sharing.
Hello, my name is Dion, and I'm with Community Access Community Network. Actually, I can relate to it, and it's interesting because I actually have a relative that's actually going through it right now. And it's hard because you try to keep family members out of it, but when you see it, you're trying to keep yourself from going to jail, you know, to being a part of it and everything. But how do you let them know that there's a safer way to remove yourself from a domestic violence situation?
And thanks for that question. That's a really important question. And I know part of the goals that we have is to talk about teen dating violence and talk about domestic violence to raise awareness so that people aren't feeling like they're isolated in these experiences. I'm going to share during the next section some ways to talk to teens and support teens. So I'm hoping some of that information will answer some of your questions, and at the end, feel free to reach out if there's any more follow-up questions. Then I see in the chat too, I was impressed with that the students created videos of situations that look like real life situations. Yeah, so it was great to see some of those examples that might come up. And this video is also that we shared a public video from Love is Respect. So it's also something that can be shared with teens that you work with or teens that are in your life. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again to share a couple more slides. So here, kind of a recap, I'm going to go through some signs of an abusive relationship and talk about some of those red flags. I know red flags is kind of a lingo that teens and youth use, so it could be helpful to talk about it in this way as well. So a red flag for a teen might be that often worrying about their partner's moods and then changing their behavior in order to deal with them, feeling like, oh, I need to change to address my partner's mood or them being upset. And then that feeling like they're always walking on eggshells. So like Maria talked about with that cycle and that tension building phase, people in healthy relationships can have disagreements or have difference of opinion, and that shouldn't feel like they are walking on eggshells. Another red flag would be a partner often insulting you or putting you down. Again, talking about that emotional abuse. Red flag, your partner often acts jealous of other relationships you have. And so that could be other relationships with friends, other trusted adults, family members. The partner trying to isolate them, not letting them spend as much time with those people who are important in their lives, and also often making these accusations of, well, you must be cheating on me, or other false accusations. And then a partner telling someone what they can and cannot do. And that can be, in regards to social media, like Maria said, you can't follow this person, or you can't go to this party or be around these people. And also even talking about what a partner can and cannot wear. Like we saw in the video, I told you not to dress like that when you came to school or when you talked to my friends. If a partner screams at you, telling you that you're nothing or calling you names, your partner claims that they cannot control themselves because of drugs or alcohol. And we didn't touch too much on this, but really wanting to highlight that being under the influence of drugs or alcohol is not something that causes teen dating violence or causes domestic violence in adult relationships. It can definitely increase the severity of violence, but it is not a cause. Using power and control is the choice of the person using that power and control. And oftentimes with that minimizing, denying, and blaming, we see someone blaming it on being under the influence or blaming it on another external factor or even on the survivor themselves and not taking accountability for something that they've done wrong. Your partner physically hurting you in any way, even again, if that's not a direct hit or slap or kick, but throwing something at you or breaking something or stealing something from you. And then another red flag is your partner forces you to engage in sexual activity that you don't want to engage in. And, or even like Maria mentioned, if someone does consent to engaging in sexual activity and wants to use protection or wants to start and wants to stop, and that partner not allowing safe sex practices being used or saying, well, you said it was okay at the beginning, or you said it was okay yesterday, and then pushing them to continue. So those are all red flags. And so that is something that can be helpful, is to talk about those red flags. So again, someone might, hearing some of this might not feel alone of knowing that these things are happening to others as well. So next I'm going to go talk a little bit about supporting teens and kind of approaching this discussion as an adult, parent, guardian, trusted adult, or maybe a clinician working with teenagers, and ways to talk about teen dating violence with teens. So starting off with accept what they are telling you, listen, be supportive and non-judgmental, even if you don't necessarily understand where they're coming from or what they're sharing with you. And if you don't agree with their decisions, it's still really important to listen without judgment. Being judgmental can hinder the teen reaching out to you again or reaching out for help when needed. So knowing that hearing some of these things from a teen that you care about can be difficult or triggering for you as the adult or the trusted adult in the situation, even thinking about how am I going to make sure that that I can listen without having a certain reaction or facial expression that would express judgment, because I want to make sure that this teen, can continue to come to me and continue to talk to me. Allowing them to make up their own mind. We know leaving an unhealthy or abusive relationship is difficult and can even be dangerous. And while you as an adult might have more years of experience with relationships than the teen that you care about does, they know the circumstances of their own relationship better than you do. And so also remembering that abuse, like Maria talked about, is about power and control. So if you make a decision for the teen or try to make a decision for them, that can add to that disempowerment they might be already experiencing from their partners. So there's ways to allow a teen to make up their own mind and support their decisions, and do this within the context of safety. After we talk about this, we'll talk a little bit more about safety planning and supporting teens with that safety planning. Really important to not just say leave or push someone to end a relationship when they come to share this information or talk to you. Just like Maria said, there is that cycle occurring, and so it's not helpful to just tell someone to leave a relationship. So we know that it's important for the teen or the person experiencing that abuse to be able to make up their own mind and to be able to have some control within their life. They might feel like the abuse is their fault. Again, with that minimizing, denying, and blaming, they might have heard over and over again, well, if you hadn't said that, or if you hadn't talked to this person, or if you hadn't gone there or worn this outfit, I wouldn't have had to yell at you or grab your phone or push you. So again, after hearing that over and over again, they might feel like the abuse is their fault. So then if they're being told just to leave the relationship, they might feel like, well, I don't need to leave. I need to change. And we don't want them to be getting that message from a trusted adult. Or they might not think that they are experiencing abuse. Again, if this might be one of their first relationships, or if this feels like it's normal, or again, if they've heard a lot of that emotional abuse and those gaslighting comments, they might think that this is just the way relationships are. So instead of being, told just to leave a relationship or being pushed to end the relationship, having conversations about healthy relationships can be helpful for the teen or the youth, modeling healthy relationships and conversations that you're having with them. They may feel dependent on their partner, their boyfriend or girlfriend, and feel like, this dependence is necessary, and they're going to deal with whatever kind of negative things they have in the relationship in order to maintain that relationship. And they might feel like they can't do any better. So again, after that constant emotional abuse and gaslighting comments, the teen might feel like this is the relationship they deserve. So there might be some fear of the unknown, of being single and not having a significant other, and being worried that they're not going to find anyone else, because this is again the best that they feel like they can do within a relationship. So again, hearing just leave or just end the relationship might not be what is productive in helping that teen. Another way to have a conversation might be talking with that teen about, in general, if someone they cared about or someone they love, like a good friend or a sibling, experience something within a relationship, how would they help that person? What would they say to that person, or what do they think that person can do to help themselves or to maintain as much safety as possible? So sometimes talking about healthy relationships or just even abusive relationships in a general context might be less threatening for that teen to have some of those conversations and process some of that information, so it doesn't feel like it's just about them. And then don't prevent them from seeing their partner. Again, controlling a teen's actions might make them feel like they need to keep more secrets from you as a trusted adult, and we want to avoid taking that decision making away from them, kind of like we talked about earlier. And again, they might already be experiencing this as a tactic within the abusive relationship. And then remember that forcing this may be something that the teen's partner who's using harm can easily manipulate and use as proof that other people are the problem. So, oh, your parent doesn't understand our relationship, and the more you tell them, the more they try to keep me away from you. And so, we don't want to be kept apart, so stop sharing that with that person. And so we don't want that to be something that ends up happening and then can further isolate the teen from you as the trusted adult. And then there's always ways to help plan for them to see their partner in a safe setting. So it might be that if you are a parent or guardian of a teen, letting that partner come over to your home because you know that you are there in the home, and maybe other trusted adults or other siblings are in the home. That helps make that setting a safe setting. So maybe helping the teen be able to see their partner in your home because that's a safe setting, or in a community, maybe with other friends or family around, so that there's also that contact with the partner in a safe setting. Then remember to not give up. Instincts to try to remove your child or your teen from harm's way immediately is very valid, or of course to try to remove a teen that you care about from harm's way is valid. And abusive relationships really aren't that simple. There are all of these dynamics going on, so it's helpful to have that understanding of these power and control dynamics. Teens that you care about need to know that they can trust you and depend on you for support. And just try to make decisions that let the teens know that you're there for them. Then another thing that you can do is to help plan for safety. So I'm going to go into safety planning. So a safety plan is a personalized plan to improve someone's safety while they're experiencing abuse, if they're preparing to leave an abusive situation, or even after they've left a situation. And this plan includes information tailored to a unique situation and will help prepare someone for certain scenarios, like informing family and friends about the abusive situation, coping with emotions that come along with experiencing abuse, and identifying various resources suited to individual circumstances. So what we really want to highlight is safety planning is a really important tool, and is there's basics to safety planning, but a safety plan, will be unique and different for every individual person's situation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to create a safety plan or help a teen create a safety plan. So when planning for emotional safety, it could be helpful to help the teen identify what their partner might say or do to make them feel bad about themselves. So help them identify what some of those harmful statements are that are coming up in the relationship, and then help them plan for what to do when these things occur, when these statements are made. So what are some positive affirmations or positive self-talk that you can help the teen practice that might contradict some of those abusive statements? And how can some of these positive affirmations be put into the teenager's routine? So can they do some positive affirmations every day to help them feel good and have good self-esteem, which their partner is trying to prevent from having? Are there different fun activities or healthy and safe people that the teen can spend time with if they are hearing some of these statements from their partner? And are there other safe and supportive social organizations or groups that you can help the teen join so that they can be a part of the safe and healthy social interactions that can, again, help combat some of that emotional abuse and some of those harmful statements that they're hearing? For physical safety, are there code words that you can talk about with that teen that the teen can use with trusted adults, family members, or friends that maybe they can say and or text and or say over the phone if they feel like their physical safety might be threatened or is being threatened? Talking about safe places to go, within the home or school or community environment, if they're worried that things might escalate, or talking with a teen about contacting 911 if that's what feels safe to them, or even if they've experienced any threats to physical safety in the past, helping them file a report. And then at school, helping the teen identify safe spaces. So like Maria talked about, like what we saw in the video, someone who's using harm in a teen relationship might be waiting outside classroom doors to walk with the survivor to different classes. So are there different routes that maybe they can take within the school setting? Are there trusted friends that they want to check in with to help them walk them from class to class? Are there trusted adults like a school counselor or school social worker that the teen might feel comfortable talking to, and maybe using their office as a safe place, or even a teacher that the teen is really connected to, that maybe free periods or study halls that they can spend some time in their office or doing office hours with that trusted adult while at school to be able to get some space from their partner, or somewhere to go if they feel like they need support. Also planning for safety online. We know a lot of us spend a lot of time online, and that's increased, during the pandemic as well. And pretty much everything we can do can also be done online. So really helping teens plan for keeping passwords private, or if they need help changing passwords, if they have shared those passwords with a partner. We know that a lot of that emotional abuse can be from this constant checking in and kind of knowing that people can be accessed just by the touch of a button, by texting. And so sometimes we see this contact at all hours of the night, or teens partners calling them past midnight, or expecting them to text back. And so even turning on do not disturb, or having a teen helping them figure out how to communicate that their phone plan or their phone is not on during the night, so they're not going to be responding at all hours to their partner. And then also talking about disabling location trackers or the Find My Friend app on smartphones. There's other sharing locations and GPSs that occur on smartphones, so helping teens unenable those or not share their location. Some examples too is Snapchat, which teens often use to communicate. There is a map that people show up so people can always see where their friends are. So disabling that so that their location can't always be seen on that application. Or like Facebook and Instagram, some other social media sites, there's that option to add a location when posting a picture. And so talking with teens about not adding locations to their posts so that their partner can't be keeping tabs on where they are located all of the time. So those are just some tips and different areas to safety plan about. But again, safety planning is individual to each person. And so there's support in creating a safety plan. So there's advocates that are always available at Love is Respect. And I'll give more details about that. They can be utilized in creating a safety plan at thehotline.org. There is an interactive safety plan that teens could go through the different browsers to be able to answer questions and get thinking about how they want to be planning for safety, and that can be done with a trusted adult. And then of course, just encouraging teens to speak with a trusted adult about creating a safety plan. So I wanted to share some community resources. So we are part of the Domestic Violence West Side program through Catholic Charities, and we have two different main goals: direct services, so domestic violence counseling, case management, mental health services, support groups, and referrals. And specifically with our domestic violence counseling, talking about these dynamics, doing that psychoeducation and safety planning. And so in our program, we see youth 14 and up, knowing that teen dating violence exists, and wanting to be a support also for teens who might want to come and talk with a counselor or advocate about their situation. So we can be a referral resource for teens. And then also our other goal is outreach. So we sometimes do community events like this. We also partner with various organizations, faith-based groups, grassroots organizations, healthcares and clinics on the west side of Chicago, and can do more tailored trainings. So of course, feel free to share our information, or if you are a part of a west side organization and you want us to come and speak to your organization, we can do that as well. And our program intake number is 312-655-7106. So feel free to use us as a resource. We are a smaller team, so we're not a hotline. We are business hours, but we do have hotline information on our voicemail. So if anyone does ever reach out to us in the middle of the night or on weekends and needs to talk to an advocate, they'll receive that information that way. We also say that our number can be used for consultation. So again, if there's someone within your family who's experiencing abuse, or you're a professional and you want to be able to support someone in that setting, you can always call and just have a consultation with our program. A couple other helpful resources that we always like to share is the Illinois Domestic Violence Hotline, which is located here. That number is, they have advocates available 24/7 to safety plan. They have translation services, and also they do a bed count of all of the domestic violence shelters twice a day in Illinois. So if you know anyone who's looking for a shelter at any point, please share that number. Then we also have the teen dating violence 24-hour hotline, this 866 number that's run through Love is Respect. So it can be a really helpful number to share with teens, and even if a teen that you know doesn't necessarily identify the relationship as abusive, or even really know if they're experiencing it and want to talk and get more information, they can always call the hotline number and just receive more information from an advocate, as well as a texting line. So knowing that sometimes teens and our youth like to text more often, they can text Love Is to 22522 to talk to an advocate. And there's also a chat option at loveisrespect.org. Definitely feel free to utilize these resources and to be sharing these resources with the teens in your life. And then here are our references for today's presentation. And then my information, I'm Beth Klieger, I'm the clinical manager, and we had Maria Prasik present, who's our wonderful outreach and intake worker. So feel free to save our email and our phone numbers and follow up with us directly if you ever have any questions in the future as well. I know we have a couple minutes, so I will share a link in the chat for our survey if you have a couple minutes to do that. And then also if anyone has any other questions. And as I saw some people putting things in the chat as we were going through the second half. So I'll just highlight some of that. I like how we talked about the emotional abuse, and that is really helpful to pay attention to and recognize.
Yeah, I think too, Beth, with that comment, I was gonna reply, but I thought I'd wait till the end. But I think I forgot to mention that you don't have to be experiencing the physical abuse for it still to be considered dating violence or domestic violence. So sometimes it is just that emotional piece, and people don't always recognize, even if you're experiencing just the emotional piece, it's still definitely considered, abuse and should be taken seriously. So thank you for highlighting, mentioning that, Tracy.
Yes, now go ahead. And so this is the slide with my information and Maria's direct contact information. So please feel free to write this down and follow up.
And we will hopefully be following up in hopefully a week once we get the link ready, and we'll send anyone that registered your registration email. We will send out. You can send out these slides in PDF form as well as the recording of this training. So you guys will definitely still be able to save this and refer back to it.
Well, thanks everyone for spending some of your Tuesday afternoon with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your participation. And we hope that everyone has a great rest of your day. And Maria and I will stay on for a minute in case anyone else has any other questions. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and end the presentation.
Beth, this is Sharon O'Brien from Catholics for Family Peace.
Hey, Sharon.
Good to see you again.
You too.
Maria, nice to meet you. I really appreciated all those detailed definitions. We see definitions all the time, but for some reason you seemed more comprehensive. Two things. So I noticed some of the slides made reference to the National Domestic Violence Hotline or Love is Respect. Are they, is this a joint thing, or you grabbed some slides from them, or what was that about? The slides that on the
the references at the bottom. Yeah. So
was it a reference?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was somehow a collaborative thing. But okay. Yeah, so it's where you drew that particular information.
Yes.
Yes, citing some of the information.
Oh,
and
okay.
a lot of information and great resources as well are located on both of those websites. So the interactive safety plan is on one of those, and then that video that we showed comes from and was created by Love is Respect. So that can also be located there as well if anyone ever wants to use it.
Yeah. I guess you could turn off the recording, or
yeah.